Ah, yes, the maidens of white supremacy, clutching their white pearls, just feigning this type of shock at how it could happen that these Supreme Court justices who are handpicked by the Federalist Society, these right-wing hacks by this right-wing organization, specifically vetted to do this job, have done the exact job that they were chosen to do. I think now, Danielle, I might actually take Republicans literally and seriously. How about you?
I mean, I guess I had to wait until this. I guess it wasn't the insurrection that did it. It wasn't when Donald Trump said that there were good people on both sides. It, wasn't when we heard the flip-flop tapes of Kevin McCarthy. It wasn't any of those things. I guess it's now. Now I have to understand that we're dealing with not your father's Republican Party.
This is just a draft opinion that leaked. And the most important thing that we have to talk about is the decorum. Because how dare the decorum be breached? How dare somebody leak this? The leak is by far the biggest problem today, not the fact that Justice Alito, thanks to the right-wing majority court implemented by Republican presidents who did not receive the popular vote, have now, with the stroke of a pen, taken away 50 years of a constitutionally protected right to an abortion. And by the way, if you read the draft opinion, but I, of course, don't take it literally and seriously, Justice Alito, in his mental gymnastics and reasonings to undo this 50-year right, also says, hey, guess what? There's no right to abortion. It's an unenumerated right. You know what else is unenumerated in the Constitution? The right to contraceptives. You know what else is unenumerated? Making interracial marriage lawful. You know what else is unenumerated? Yeah, private schools, which they seem so obsessed about. But you know what? It's okay. Don't take Republicans literally and seriously. In the opinion, they said, Justice Alito said, this only deals with abortion. It doesn't deal with any other unenumerated rights. And we had, of course, Senator Marsha Blackburn during the confirmation hearing of Judge Jackson say, I think Griswold is unconstitutional. And Danielle, do you want to tell people what Griswold is all about?
You need to tell people because you're the attorney. I only play one on television.
Griswold versus Connecticut is the hallmark 1965 Supreme Court case that gave us the right to privacy. Specifically, married couples have the right to use contraceptives. And then a few years later, another Supreme Court case came out that gave unmarried folks the right to use contraceptives. So Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee, I want to repeat this, during the confirmation hearing of Justice Jackson, said that she believes that Griswold, that gave you all the right to use contraceptives, is unconstitutional. And then Senator Mike Braun also took it a step further and said, yep, I agree that Griswold is unconstitutional. I also think Loving v. Virginia is unconstitutional, yep. And that should be pushed to the states. You don't have to be a lawyer to tell the folks, what happened as a result of Loving v. Virginia? Something small.
Oh, I don't know that my parents right now are married because
they're an
interracial couple. What I find really telling about all of this is just how, I don't know, feckless the fucking Democratic Party is. And why do I say that? Because Republicans have been doing the grassroots work at the state and local level on abortion for 50 years.
Yep.
This is not something that they up and decided to do under Trump. It is not something that they up and decided to do in the last couple of years. This is something that they have been aggressively working at for 5 decades. Now, the thing that they are saying very much out loud, which is not the quiet part, is that this abortion case is not where they end, it is where they start. Yep. So by virtue of Alito signaling that these things are not enumerated, they're not rooted in, quote, deep American history, right? They're not foundational to America. Well, who is it that gets to decide what is and is not foundationally rooted in America? A bunch of white men that get to decide that? The 6-3 court that gets to decide that same-sex marriage is not a part of the fabric of the United States, that interracial marriage is not a fabric or a part of the United States. And what is troubling me is that there has been no plan or strategy put in place by the Democratic Party other than for them to send out a bunch of fucking fundraising emails that I got in my email, in my inbox, and text messages to tell me that I need to give them more money because they couldn't do enough with the money and the voting that we did in a pandemic.
Yeah, you have every right to be angry. Look, let's keep it real. Let's bring out the receipts. RBG, we love her, but RBG should have retired. Democrats begged her to retire. She didn't retire. This was when she was going to the
80.
hospital all the time, but then, there was videos of her like being released, doing her push-ups and her dumbbells. And they're like, I think you should retire because you might die. And she did pass away. And then who'd we get instead? The anti-RBG, Handmaiden Barrett. What we also have is this remarkable, not just the 40-year, 50-year process where it was deliberately, they're chiseling away, right, to create this type of minority rule through the courts. And what we mean by that is you can undo popular majoritarian policies through the Supreme Court now. I'll give you an example. They tried to do it through the Affordable Care Act. They're like, all right, Obama got the popular vote. Obama put through ACA. Guess what? We got the courts. We got this. We have a 5-4 majority. And Justice Roberts at the end is the one who actually saved what? Obamacare. And when it came to the Senate, it was McCain who saved Obamacare. But basically, that's the strategy, is that whatever popular legislation you have, we'll undo it through the courts. Established precedent, we'll undo it through the courts, which is why Mitch McConnell and Republicans with surgical precision decided that we're going to get the federal courts, the Supreme Courts, the local courts, and we're going to have minority rule. What are you going to do about it? In your face.
Oh, what are you going to do about it? Oh, I don't know. Because all of those things to me spell revolution, right? The only way that apartheid governments have ever dissolved is not through an election process because they control all the mechanisms and power. It comes through acts of revolt. Yeah. Right? And so if you are putting in place all of the mechanisms to strip away constitutional rights and you're going to go with what you believe to be low-hanging fruit, and then you are going to continue to pick greedily from that tree that we call our freedom and our democracy, you provide the people with no choice. Right? And this is the thing that I want folks to understand, is that I don't ever advocate for violence, but you're setting up a situation where you're making violence the only choice. And the other thing that I also want to lift up as well is that we've talked about Marjorie Taylor Greene several times on this show. And I want to point to the things that Marjorie Taylor Greene has said in the last couple of weeks about Satan taking control, right? About Satan and about how evil Nancy Pelosi is, how evil the Democrats are. These are the descendants of people who were able to weaponize the Bible as a means to perpetuate the slave trade for 400 years in this country. When you set a conversation, couch it around language that is pinning religious fundamentalists against people who think differently from them, what do you think that the decision is going to be? That we're going to need to use force in order to get these people to submit to our will, to submit to our God, right? Because by doing so, by acting in opposition to our political might and force, you are going against the will of God, right? And when we talk about these people, I want us to showcase the seriousness with the language that they are using and what they are signaling to their base.
They want violence, right? Because they're armed to the teeth and they're like, okay, bring it. We got the guns. And we believe that violence is necessary in order to purify this country of the filth and the sin and the mark of the beast. And we're going to make sure that the deep state does not infiltrate this democracy, and they will not replace us. The invaders will not replace us. And if we have to use violence to protect our children from becoming indoctrinated in the sex cult run by liberals, and we have to use violence to protect our unborn kids, then we will use violence. And that is the next step. And I don't think people are really, it's one of the situations, Danielle, where when this happened, I had pitched an article last week before we didn't know about this. We found out about this on Monday night, right? This historic leak. Last week, I pitched an article. I said, listen, I believe Supreme Court is going to overturn Roe v. Wade in June when they're going to hear this Mississippi case. And I'm pitching you an article about what comes next. And so I was sitting down on Monday writing that article, and this happened. And, you know, on this show, it gives us no joy to be like, we were right. We took Republicans literally and seriously. We've been calling it out. We've been connecting the dots. We're not cynics. We're not nihilists. We're not apathetic. When we see the comet in the sky, we call out the comet.